Bum, ba, 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 ba. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to another Loki review. Of course, this week going into episode 3. Uh, Lamentis, I just wrote it all down wrong here as I'm doing it. Lamentis. Thank you.
Lamentis.
I can't read my own writing, even with my glasses on. Joining me this week, I have a duo of fine compatriots. Starting over on the top right here from Enchantment of Eternity, we've got Marc joining us.
Hello, always great to be here, Dan. Thanks so much for joining, and great to talk about this show and loving it so far. So can't wait to get into it.
Excellent, excellent. And of course, from a Dawn of Ice and Fire, it's Agent Williams himself, Don Willie.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Glad to be back for another episode of Loki. Darren, thank you for having me. Marc, great to see you.
Yeah, and once again, Don, thanks for jumping in last week, the last minute, to kind of sort of fill in and give us a wonderful third. I appreciate that. Of course, if you guys, yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to say I feel like I'm the only one of your guests, Dan, who always forgets to come up with a clever name. It seems like everyone else does it. I always forget. It's like, damn it, I should have had a clever name.
You know, don't feel bad. My little marquee here has remained exactly the same like since I started this. So Don's usually really good at getting some good imagination in that, and Alyssa as well last week coming in as Miss Minutes. Now, of course, I do want to let you guys know, if you enjoy the conversation with this little grouping, we will actually be back together next Saturday, July 3rd, over on this guy's channel right here, Enchantment of Eternity, having a fun discussion on time loop movies and series shows. So if you like the timey-wimey stuff, we will talk about that a little bit more, give you a little teaser to come and check out next Saturday, July 3rd, over on Enchantment of Eternity. And I do want to take a moment to thank everybody who is showing up live today. Nice group. Lily Mac showing up first here in the chat. Silva Surfer always here with us as well. We saw NV Warren jumping in right there. And of course, Rob from Smirking Gun Reviews. How you doing, man? And Allison 4D. So we got a nice little group in the chat today.
Hi, Allison. Good to see you.
Excellent. All right. So let's get into our overview. And I'm really curious how you saw this week's episode, because we had a lot of buildup kind of coming in, a lot of expectation with that doorway being left open and then slammed shut of what we were going to run into this week. So I'm really curious how the tempo and tone and everything of this episode sort of worked for you in the story arc. And Marc, I want to sort of actually start over with you, since this is the first time in. Give us a little background on how you've been feeling about the show so far, and then come right into, just give us a brief overview of what you thought about this week's episode on our apocalyptic planet.
Yeah, sure. So I've been loving this show so far. I know some people are saying like this is gonna be the best of the Marvel shows. I'm not. I don't know. I have to see the whole thing before I can compare it to WandaVision. But right now, I like it like a billion times better than Falcon Winter Soldier personally. But so. I'm loving like the chemistry between Loki and Owen Wilson. I was actually a bit disappointed that Owen Wilson didn't appear in this episode, because it's the one I'm talking about, and I was willing to talk about him in this episode. But so I the whole concept of like the weird timey-wimey stuff, I think it's a thin line, and so that's why ultimately I had to reserve judgment until this whole series completed to see if they walk it. Like, it's funny because I was talking to Alyssa the other day, and she was telling me a lot of people were comparing this show to Rick and Morty, and with the whole sort of multiverse and all the weird shit that they're doing. And in my opinion, Rick and Morty went way overboard with that stuff, and I started to find it not interesting because it was way too confusing and just went way into the weeds with it. So I think there's that danger of this show doing that as well. But
Okay.
so far, I think they're walking the line quite well. So as long as they keep that up towards the end, I think I'm going to enjoy it very much. Now, as for this episode in particular, it's funny because I just watched a couple of reviews where someone was like, they were complaining about how this episode was complete filler and it was a waste of time. You only have 6 episodes. Why are you wasting your time with this boring filler? And I see you shaking your head, Don, and I totally agree with you there because it's not. I don't understand that mindset. Why someone can? I mean, sure, it does have a different pace than the previous 2 episodes for sure, but I think it helps the show. I think you need that, especially that does a lot of character development with female Loki or was
Sylvie.
Sylvie, yes, that's what she said her name is. And you definitely needed that because she was just like she's this mystery character. There was who is this character in the first 2 episodes, and they just revealed what she looked like at the end of the previous episode. So to spend the next episode fully developing her and having that relationship between her and Loki and that nice chemistry that they had, which I actually think really worked as well.
Mm-hmm.
You need that, and I think that's definitely what they needed. And plus, it also not only does it delve into her character, but also you get more of Loki as well. So I actually really enjoyed that. But getting back to the show as a whole, the one thing that I will say that I was kind of disappointed to me about the character of Loki is that I think it kind of sucks that they had to reset it back to the Avengers level, like the first Avengers movie, Loki,
Right.
because he had so much character development since then. It seems like back then he was just like the evil guy, and now they've reset it to the evil guy. Kind of disappointing, and the show is kind of having to speed through the similar character development to get him back up to speed to where he was. And so that's the part of the show that's been kind of clunky to me. But he is definitely more mischievous and having that side, particularly in this episode, and the way he plays off of Sylvie and always trying to sort of deceive her and stuff. Actually works for me. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed this episode.
Excellent, excellent. Well, actually, he did all that character arc and evolution while he was watching the show of his life.
Yeah,
so that's how that works. That's why television's great. We are just by watching things.
Yeah, he was watching the other Marvel movies. They put him on.
That's right. He got emotional. He got teary. Had the big thing of popcorn. Okay. All right, Don. What about you? What did you think coming into this week, especially with all the expectation we were talking about last week of oh my God, what's through the doorway? How did you feel walking through that this week?
So it was interesting. For one, like I said, there was a lot of speculation online that she was not Loki. She was the Enchantress, and more specifically, Sylvie. Now, mind you, I don't really know about the newer version of Enchantress. I know about the more classic one, Amora. So, I mean, but even Amora had blonde hair. So, when everybody was saying, "Oh, it's Sylvie," I'm like, okay, I'll run with it. So that was cool to get that. To get that confirmation. And then also, oh my God, the TVA is a lie. The whole damn thing's a lie. Because I was definitely wondering in the beginning when they showed her with, it was an Agent 22 or 20 or whichever one she...
Honestly, I am definitely one I have not kept track of all of the numbers of which one was 10 and 15 and 20. Yeah. Yeah.
So, when she had her in that enchanted state, I was like, this is interesting. Why is she showing her this? Why is she showing her why would this even be relevant? So yeah, it was one of those things where I'm like, okay, wow. But now this also makes sense for the fact of Owen Wilson being obsessed with jet skis.
Yeah.
Right? Because, he was a variant of another guy. So I'm guessing that the whole TVA, possibly with the exception of two people that we've seen thus far, and I'm saying only possible exception of two
Right.
people, are all variants, and that would be Ravonna Renslayer and Agent 50, the one who has been uh, the the first agent that Loki encounters.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
think if anybody isn't a variant, one, Ravonna like would be the number one candidate, and then number two would be Agent 50, right? Um,
So do you think this is what the reset is after the trial when they get judged and where Loki was about to go off and be reset? You think that's what they do? Is they don't kill you, they just wipe your mind and send you to a desk?
Well, yeah, because I now that you think about it, right? It's like, okay, well, she Sylvie said that she's been chased by the TVA for all this time, right? She's able to peer into everyone's mind and see them for who they really are and learn that that they're variants or whatever. So she probably knows the entirety of anyone who she's come in contact with story, since she can peer into their minds in order to bring on that enchantment. So yeah, it's probably the reset, because you got to think about it. Like when we're first seeing it, we're thinking, okay, the reset is you get wiped from existence, because that's what definitely they're doing with the reset charges.
Yeah, well, and the pruning and the ready to destroy at any moment. Yeah, of course.
Right, but then I'm guessing that the pruning rods, for lack of a better term, are for, if we can't get you under control, then you're gone. But it's interesting because now we got to figure out what at the TVA is actually real, right? Because we know they have power dampening technology of some sort, right?
Right.
Are the timekeepers a real thing? Well, I think they are in some capacity. But then this also proves that there is no such the sacred timeline is a lie. And who is perpetuating that lie? That there should only be one sacred timeline.
Sure. And that's the larger plot question, where I think some of the resistance that might be out there with some of the fandom about this being a filler episode, mainly because of those ideas, is we haven't yet furthered along the plot story of the whole timeline and whether this mystery is and things like that. So I think that might be where some of that might be coming from also. In the chat, we've also got, Alyssa Jean jumping in here with us, reminding us that, Don, you and her did mention that the TVA was a lie. I also mentioned Bill Casey here, imagining if Owen Wilson is a variant of Owen Wilson.
That would be meta, hilarious, and genius. Absolute genius.
My theory is that he's a variant of his character from Wedding Crashers.
Wow.
See, that's it. And that would, for some reason, that really gets the jet ski thing like perfectly synced up. I don't know. That gets me entirely. Well, see, this is why I love having you guys on and bringing you this up, because you've pointed out a lot of the kind of like good points of this, because I have to say I am one of those bits of the fan that was honestly a little disappointed with this episode. It made me a bit sad, and I had to go watch Stargate afterwards to cheer myself up. Wow. SG1, folks.
Wow.
For the time loop thing, you can catch us next Saturday, July 3rd, over on Enchantment of Eternity. It's a window of opportunity from season 4.
Wow.
I told you that I would put a drop of a little teaser in there coming up. No, honestly, what got me, look, the cinematography in this was beautiful. Purple is one of my favorite colors, so I love all the giant hues. And there was tons of color in this. I mean, really, comic book pages coming to life with a lot of these shots. The character interaction between Loki and Sylvie, great. We had sort of a sibling, a rivalry, dating. There's this, I mean, the relationship kind of got all very mixed up, the way they were feeding and playing back and forth off each other. And I love that. That was all very cool. What saddened me from this episode is the fact that we had built up for 2 episodes this variant, 20 steps ahead of everyone, prepared, dangerous, having to bring in a variant Loki, stymieing, frustrating Mobius, and our plans to rush the place with an uncharged time travel device. She leaves the door open, but she doesn't want Loki to come in. She doesn't know magic doesn't work in the TVA, because the first thing she tries to do is enchant someone, and it doesn't work. So she's never been here before. She gets stopped by Loki, which is okay. But yeah, once we get the escape to Lamentis, I mean, God, comic book naming is just so on the money. Then we have a thing that's out of power, okay? Out of power, out of gas, out of batteries. We got to stop that now, okay? Unless you foreshadow that, it's a cheap trick. And then we find out that Sylvie this is a plan years in the making. And she doesn't even have backup, like pre-programmed escape points and backup supplies and materials. Yes, there were questions we brought up in the chat that maybe there is much of this. Is it an enchantment? Is it real? There may be questions of that. Sure. But we had built up Sylvie to be a force to be reckoned with, an impressive variant. And she is more of a petulant rebel in this episode from her mannerisms and her reactions and her planning. Now, to me, that means definitely somebody else is involved in all of this, because if this was years in the planning and this is as far as she got, she's not as impressive as Loki, in my mind. So I'm curious where they're going to take it, but to me, that's what just kept pulling me back. It was just like, this is the big threatening variant. How did she I think Loki even asked that. How did you last this long? Don?
She's a Loki.
Fair enough.
I mean, Lokis fail. That's what they do. I mean, what, you know, you're expecting better from a Loki. It doesn't matter if she changed her name. You know, she's a Loki.
Touche. Nice. No. I appreciate that. That is what the show has demonstrated. That's their job, to fail in order to make someone else be the better version. So is this the failure Loki to make our Loki the best version of himself?
Basically.
Okay, cool.
So I wanted to point out in the chat what Alyssa is saying. So Alyssa's saying, I think the temp device, or whatever you call it, is perfectly full of battery. I think it was a trick by Loki to get someone one-on-one time with Sylvia and find out what she's about. And the device is not destroyed. It's also a trick. Which is interesting. I haven't heard that one yet, but that's an interesting that actually could be the case. Now, Darren, I think, were you hinting at this other theory I heard of about this whole episode being an enchantment?
Yeah, it had mentioned in the chat. There's a few points in this where they kind of hint at it with the sleeping and the resting and.
Well, yeah, there's one theory in particular I heard is that when Sylvia went to enchant Loki, and he's like, "Oh, I'm too powerful." That actually she did enchant him, and the rest of the episode is just her tricking him to try to get information out of him.
Sure.
And that's another way they could have played. So it could have been that way. It could have been what Alyssa said. And also Alyssa and Allison pointed out in the chat that the episode ended abruptly too, which is the one thing they didn't like, and I don't think I like that either. I think maybe the ending of the episode could have been better, but I have a feeling the next episodes could start with "ha, this whole thing was a trick the whole time," and that's how they get out of the situation.
Sure. Which, I mean, yes, they can, but it's also a little cheap. I mean, in some ways to tease us for a whole, and yes, it gives us great character moments and stories and evolution and insights and little bits like that, which are entertaining. But what does it serve for Sylvie? For instance, if Loki had magically taken the TVA, the time device away, and this was all a trick, once she got the time device back, she could have then broken the enchantment. Why continue the mission after that? I mean, it could be about to get information, but what is her motivation once she gets that TVA destroyed or not?
Wait. I think the Infinity Fitted might be telling me something.
Use the power, the insight.
They've both been enchanted. This isn't just our Loki being enchanted. This is also her being enchanted as well. Because think about it. Remember, when they both saw the Ark get destroyed, Loki was standing there like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is going to be the way that I go out." And she gave up. She was just like, "Oh, fucking, I'm done." She turned around and walked away, right? So I mean, like, if she was the one playing the trick, at that point, that's the moment where where you wake him up, because it's like, hey, or you do your big twist, because at that point it's like, all right, he's got nothing left. He can't even come up with another alternate plan at this point. But to see her give up, it was like, okay. If we're going with the theory of, that someone, if we're going to go with the theory of this being an enchantment, I don't think she's the one running it. It would have to be a third party if we're going with an enchantment, because even she's disillusioned at this point.
Or maybe that's just what she wants you to think.
Well, it's funny because from a play of character, it does feel like she's like, yeah, great, I'm going to go get a drink because we're all about to die right now, and I told you that it's pointless to get out. It feels like she's almost giving that type of that's the next shot, is inside the bars. Everything is, people are panicking as they're reaching to grab a bottle and have a drink and, do some more Asgardian singing. Maybe Loki's going to teach her some songs before they go.
I love that scene so much. But one piece of evidence I heard that this is her enchanting him is that the scene at the start where they show her like in the club or the cafe or whatever with the agent or whatever that she's enchanting, is like the way that was filmed with them sitting together was exactly the same when her and Loki were sitting in that train having drinks, whatever. So saying there was a similarity between that, so there could have been her doing the same thing with him.
And that was the same type of rest stuff. If you're tired, why don't you rest? Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is there are little moments and bits where they kind of allude that it could be happening. And again, that could just be the director playing with us, or the hints of what other movements are supposed to come up next. But let's kind of jump. Yeah. Well, let's kind of jump into the episode itself. Okay, so we have the opening, we have the assault on the TVA. Again, Sylvie's shown what she can do. Discovering magic, not really the same. That doesn't last that long, though. Renslayer certainly showing up. The fact that she takes Loki and goes, "Come in or I'll kill him." I love that Renslayer was like, "Go ahead, I don't care." Any thoughts on our TVA attack there before we jump to Lamentis?
Well, the one thing I was gonna say is when she said, "Go ahead, I don't care," it's obvious she was gonna say that. Like, I don't understand why. Like, I knew she was gonna say that before she said it. I don't understand why Sylvie actually thought that would make a difference.
She could have thrown Loki at it and then hit the call button. Yeah, but you never know how long it's going to take for those elevators to show up. So,
and I don't know. I think to get back to some of the concerns you addressed earlier, Darren, I think what this episode or this scene is basically trying to tell us is that the reason why she was defeated and why her plan didn't work was because of Loki. It's another version of her, basically, and that's the only person who could possibly stop her. Basically, because here's the thing that kind of bothered me about this, and I think the episode is trying to, the way that she easily kicked everyone's ass is something I didn't quite buy, but I think it was trying to say that she was like superior fighting power, but then Loki isn't her equal into that, so only he could stop her. So I think that's what they were saying. I don't know if I completely buy it or completely think it works, but I think that is what they were getting at.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I do like the idea is, it's a Loki showing up. This is going to mess things up. And Don's a special comment of, it is a Loki. They're supposed to fail, ultimately. I mean, honestly, if that really is the undercutting story in this, I'm gonna be super impressed, and I'm gonna give Don all the credit for sorting that out. Don, did you have any thoughts on the TVA before we get to Lamentis?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I thought it was interesting because this was the continuation of last week where the agent told the rest of the squad, I told them how to find the timekeepers, and I'm like, so this is interesting for the fact that pretty much no one that we know at the TVA has seen the timekeepers, but yet there's an elevator that goes right to them. Like, and you're telling me no one got curious and just like, fuck it, I'm jumping on the elevator? Yes, I might be eternally wiped out, but at least I get to actually say before I die, I saw the damn timekeepers look like, as opposed to like, we just got people guarding this golden elevator that leads to the ultimate power in the multiverse. And we're just like,
the 8th floor.
We have to protect it at all costs. People can't even look up. You cannot gaze upon the timekeeper's visage. Oh my god! Like, what? All right, so so obviously, whatever these guys have been doing in terms of crafting this whole thing, it's worked. Except for, you throw a Loki in the mix and it's just like, no, we have to find a way to gum up the works here. So, I mean, good fight. I'm expecting, look, if she's another Loki, then what, I think Loki's 1,500 years old. Because, I mean, I know Thor mentioned being like 1,500 years old.
Something like that. So they would be, that would make sense.
So, I would imagine, and also being from Asgard, you always hear about the wars they fight between the 9 realms and all that stuff. So, I would imagine that Loki should be, or Sylvie, excuse me, that Sylvie should be an above average fighter. And especially now that we know that, she's fighting variants of like regular people for the most part.
Probably Matrix training, downloaded their reset programming or something like that. Or, how to file, not what fish are. Who cares what fish are? We just file. Poor Casey.
Right. So interesting setup scene. I knew that we weren't going to get to see the timekeepers this early.
Sure.
Either that, or it would, or well, I knew we weren't going to get to see the timekeepers. Or if she made it on that elevator and got upstairs, then it would have been, something like the mystery deepens because you got here and now there's like nothing or something like that, or it's like or like the architect from the Matrix just sitting in a white room, pontificating. It's just like, yeah, I'm gonna try to sound the absolute most highbrow that I can, and Loki and Sylvie sitting like, what the hell? Can you what gibberish are you speaking, man?
Yeah, it'd just be like 1977 leaves to 2055, which couldn't have happened without 1847, June 9th. Miss Shirley did it. It'd just be one mumbling various time moments.
Ergo, therefore.
Ergo, therefore, 2890. That's right.
But you're forgetting concordantly vis-a-vis.
Oh, yeah. All the big words. Okay, so the attempt gets... Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted, before we move to Lamentis, I did want to talk about the opening scene.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, very cool. Yes, definitely go in, because that was sort of... I love who does the music in this. I don't know what song that was, but I was like, yeah, man, all right.
That was honestly probably my favorite scene of the episode. I love the way it played out and how you have like no idea what that was. It's just two best friends, women sitting at the bar talking like, what the hell is going on? And then all of a sudden they're like, it's like, oh, you can tell me anything. Oh, let's chat. Just say the first thing that comes to mind. Like, where are the time? How many people are guarding the timekeepers? And as soon as that happened, I was like, what? And it was amazing. And then they just kept flipping it, and then the reveal that she's actually just standing there, like reaching in her mind. I'm like, I thought that was amazing. I thought that was a great scene, and I think it does sort of set the stage for basically what she can do in her interactions with Loki. Even if that theory about her enchanting Loki isn't true, it still does a great job of like setting the stage for what she's capable of and her intentions. I just love that scene so much.
Well, yeah, but I think it is also a great setup because it explains why Loki's reaction later on when he finds out that the TVA agents are all variants and they don't know it. That this is a way, again, he's smart. If he understands how the magic works, he could probably recreate the magic himself, which is why he's asking those questions, which would allow him. A lot of people are just like, he's going to let Owen Wilson know he was a jet ski rider. Which may be in Phil whatever sort of fandom that is, but I'm very sure that that's going to be something that will come back and play in the whatever Loki's plan is with the TVA down the road.
So I have a question. Like, we know what Loki's plan is. His plan was to ingratiate himself to the timekeepers and try to like trick them and to become them, which is really stupid. But do we know what Sylvia's plan is exactly? She mentioned, "Oh, you messed up my plan." Like, what is her end game? Did they mention that
during their walk and talk? Loki suggests, because she was like, he said that I want to take over, and she was, of course, like, I don't want that. So he goes, oh, so your plan is just to run in there, kill the timekeepers, and leave a power vacuum and walk away? And she's like, which sounds like her sort of chaos plan. They intimate that she has been chased all of her life by the timekeepers or by the TVA. So she's been evading and trying and running and stuff for at least an extended period of time. So I think it's sort of a revenge. Like, I have to stop you. I'm just going to destroy where your base is so I can be free. Might be her only motivation.
I mean, yeah, that's an interesting thought process. If you take that at face value, I mean, that could be the case, that she simply is sick of being hunted and wants to put an end to it and wants to stop them, and so she can be free. And that hasn't really even, and revenge, and she hasn't really given any much thought past that.
Sure.
Or I think maybe there could be a bigger motivation here that she's keeping hidden from him. And then, which would be especially true if the enchanted theory is correct.
Right. Well, and Loki again also points out a lot sort of towards the end before she finally, reveals, what she does for enchanting, that he actually learns very little specifics from her throughout this. She always plays off. She asks a lot about Frigga and Loki's mom and gets the stories there, but she's like, I barely remember mine. What she gives back tends to be very little. You learn from character interaction, but you learn very little specifics on this episode, which again could imply to the fact that all of this is fake and she's totally playing Loki for whatever higher purpose or enchantment or anything that they may be doing. Would that undercut the fun character evolution or story that we get from her in this? I don't know. Still a fun one. So we get down to Lamentis, with varying bits of danger depending on what the plot needs at that particular moment. Is the rock storm heavy? Is it light? It doesn't matter. We do get a lot of enchantment in there. We get the wonderful enchantment scene that we're talking about, and Loki being too strong of a mind. We find out that she has had this plan for a long period of time. We get the classic line from Sylvie, I don't need your help, and Loki, you're so weird, as they're running for their lives from the falling rocks, which was just hilarious. But yeah, most of this is whether they are walking to the train, getting shot by the old lady, getting on the train or off, definitely moving from moment to moment so we get these great character interactions. And it's definitely the strength between that and using all the cool Mandalorian tech for all the shots and movement and everything like that. I think it was definitely the high point and where really the meat of this episode obviously tends to lay. So yeah, thoughts on those moments, either from the very beginning or as we're getting up to the train sequence with the singing. All of these moments were all very cool. What were the ones that sort of stood out for you, Don? The big bits on the journey through Lamentis.
So obviously the nice little nod to Kill Bill, with Sylvie going and kicking the door open and getting blasted.
I'd forgotten that. Yes, that was Kill Bill. Perfect.
Yeah, because that, like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, "Oh, it's the bride." Oh man, all we were missing was the rock salt. And then like I knew that Loki was going to get himself shot too, because I'm like, okay, you see the picture of the husband, and your plan is to impersonate the husband and do what? She's gonna know you're not real. You were just a whole nother person 10 seconds ago. Like,
Lokis don't seem to be particularly bright. They're clever, but I'm not sure how bright they actually are.
So I'm like, yeah, that like, I understand he was trying to, put her at ease so they could get the information that they wanted, but it's like, yeah, you were a whole nother person literally a few seconds ago. And now you're going to try to, pretend like, you're her long lost husband, like, you don't know what happened to him. Like, what if he's actually not dead? What if, what if it's a thing where, yeah, he just, like, went to go see if they could somehow get off of the planet, and he was supposed to come back. Like,
he made a big assumption based on a snapshot. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, like, it was kind of crazy that, the whole town was, evacuated already, and like, I'm like, this was the worst apocalypse that they had to deal with, and why was that even plugged in? Why was the worst apocalypse of all?
And he just grabbed and pressed. Why would that be? Yeah, why would that be on the list? If it's the worst place that you could go, why would it be like at the top of the list? He didn't scroll. He didn't randomly choose. He just like grab and press, like whatever the next program button was.
I don't know. I think I heard that she had like various apocalyptic places like programmed in.
Sure.
And I think I don't remember, but didn't she say this is the worst of the ones that she had? Basically.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like, why would you even leave that? Why would you even leave that? Still programmed in.
That shouldn't be on your favorites list. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, like if it's the worst, that might be like a sort of last ditch. Like if you need a really really great hiding place, like the sort of emergency situation,
sure,
kind of thing.
But she hasn't put any supplies in these. I don't know. Maybe this answers the question. You can only visit them once in the timeline or something.
No, because Loki was the one that kind of posited that that you could visit certain places more than once. Like, and that's how he figured out about Rocksmart, because he was like, yeah, well, she could just keep on coming back here and wait it out for supplies, and then when it's about to all in, you just dip out, and then you come back to right before it's about to end all over again.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought, but it's just kind of funny. Yeah, why do you have this program but there's no backup? If this is the last ditch place, I don't know.
Well, I'm guessing
I know they need it for the story, but
I'm guessing she must have never been there like herself then. Like, what? And then the other thing, the other question is, all right, if she's never, like, has it been established that she's never been at the TVA before? I know she said that they were hunting her, but
she tried to use magic when she walked in and it didn't work. To me, that says she's never been there before.
Okay, well then the question remains: how did she even know about the TVA? First off, right? How does she know about the technology? I understand this is years in the making, but we don't know how many years, and then time passes differently in the TVA, et cetera, et cetera. So it's almost like Captain Cisco with I could be here 50 years from now, or I could be here yesterday, or something like that.
Sure.
So yeah, it's one of those things where we don't know how she acquired the knowledge that she has. We know that she's very knowledgeable about, like, I guess the peripheries of the workings of the TVA with the agents, their technology,
sure,
etc. But but it's like, well, how did she get the list of apocalypses to go to? Right? How does she get that apocalypse?
That is an excellent point, which is why I think the idea that someone else must be involved in this, because she doesn't seem to have all of the knowledge required to plan what it is that she's doing. And you're right.
Somebody's pulling the strings.
Yeah. But that also is, again, we got very little information, specifics from her this episode, like we were talking about. It was more of feeling and character. Maybe that's what we get with the next, episode, the background, the storyline. Maybe that's the journey that comes in before we go and take down the TVA or reform it or whatever the actual ultimate goal for this series is in the next 3 episodes.
There's only 3 episodes.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's crazy. All right.
But I think that it doesn't necessarily mean that there's someone pulling the strings. It could, like most of those questions you asked, Don, I think there could be reasonable explanations for them. That's maybe, but we just don't know enough about her. At least I think. Like we just don't know enough reveal. We need more background on her. And there could be explanations to why she knows all those things.
Actually, I want you to go into that, but I just got to jump in right now. Allison, look, I'm giving you props right now. The Apoco list. It was right there. It was right there, and you brought it to us. Just thank you so much. That is beautiful. Okay, Mark, what about you on our planetary walk and talk? Our jump there. I know you wanted to get on the train and the singing part. What did you enjoy about these things? What are the moments that kind of stood out for you that really kind of gave you the like, yeah, this is the meat happening right here?
Well, are we still talking about the journey to the train, like before they get there?
No, all the way up to the train. We're talking the main stuff before we get to the end, because it's all just moments within that. I think.
Yeah. No, I love the scene in the train where he's singing and drinking, and it does really showcase the difference between Loki and Sylvie, because Sylvie was just like refuses to drink. She's like, we're gonna have to like do this biggest, distill a power source. That's the main hope for survival for a whole race of people. And he's like, oh, whatever. And he's back and drinking.
You relax your way, I'll do it my way.
The one question I had, and we had this one guy that came in and looked at Loki sideways while he was drinking and having fun and singing, and he went and got the funny hack people to come and get him. That guy looked kind of like Christoph Waltz to me. I don't know. That's what I'll say. But anyway, I don't know. Like, what's his motivation? Why did he think Loki singing was so weird that he needed to get the security people?
He's not a karaoke fan. Yeah. He was like, karaoke was not scheduled tonight, and I'm upset. That is it is one of those things which seems very much like just a plot motivator.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a complaint I have about this episode overall. It's like this. I don't think there's a. I mean, I was going to say I don't think there's enough world building, but I understand you only got one episode. You don't really have time to waste in developing this place that's going to be trashed anyway. But it does seem like a lot, because they do have to delve into the world as by necessity to a certain extent. And it all seems kind of hollow to me, like all the people with like funny hats and that random guy who just came in. I don't know. Someone said that it looked like Cobra Commander, those people with the security.
They're variants of Cobra, yes.
Yeah, but so that was a bit hard to get into, but I guess I just had to take it with a grain of salt that that's not the point. Like, that's not the point of the episode. The world building actually doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter why. But that thing with the dude who called security, that did seem like a big plot convenience thing. Like, we need them to get caught and whatnot. But I certainly did enjoy the whole interaction between Loki and Sylvie on the train, like the whole showing the difference and how they talked about their different families and whatnot, and how it's interesting because didn't Loki get thrown off the train, but Sylvie like voluntarily went after him because he still had the
how he got just tossed out of the train by a couple of
that seemed like plot convenience to me.
Those.
Yeah.
when we get to the end, I think there's some perfect examples of what the show is kind of all summed up in that last little end bit. Because I agree with you. There's like great moments, but sometimes the things linking them or getting them from A to B is like, okay, you just needed them to go there, so you just put them there.
But the whole thing with him singing the songs and someone also reminded me, like I've totally forgot about this, the way he sort of just like smashed his drink was like very reminiscent of what Thor did in his movie.
Another splash.
Yeah, exactly. And so that scene actually reminded me a lot of who Loki was like in the previous movies, and it really after. So I thought it was a great character bit that it was really true to his character, and it was the type of thing that he would do, and it really reminded me of who exactly this character is. So that's part of the reason why I loved it so much. And as I said, it showcased the difference between Sylvie because she apparently had a totally different background because she was actually smarter to draw all this unnecessary attention.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and you're right. It does sort of play back the fact. I mean, it's as we meet Loki just before the Avengers and his real big turn is he was part of the group. He was the adventurous. Yes, he was a trickster, but he was part of the court, and he'd drink with his friends and have revelries and enjoyment, which would be very different for her if she seems to have been on the run for all of this time. So it does kind of like point out those really big differences. Even as Loki is complaining, like, "Oh, I'm the bad guy" or whatever. It's like, well, yeah, but really for like a week and a half, you know, you did a turn thing, and 6 months maybe it is. Somebody had pointed out through my Twitter feed, they translated "drunk" in English. In Norwegian, it means full. So when she tells him that he's drunk and he goes, "No, I'm full, but I am very full." It is a nice sort of like language play on words right there, which I thought was super cute. Very clever. Okay, so the train thing doesn't work. We get a nice moment between the two characters. We get a great comic shot of, and I wish I could have pulled it up. If you look up Sylvie from Marvel Comics, there is a shot of her like screaming and those explosion coming out of her eyes and her hands. Very reminiscent of her screaming shot here at Loki on the planet, which was a totally cool little comic reference right there. But we get our nice little moment between Loki and Sylvie. Yeah, we're going to have to work together. We're going to have to trust each other. It's going to be the only way. We're just going to rush this place and somehow change an apocalypse that is definitely unchangeable. The worst possible, which I got to appreciate the Loki's going for. And then we get our big final run to the Ark. And you guys can sum up from any point going in. I wanted to jump to this because to me, a lot of this final shot, and I've talked about how much I love single camera shots. And I love the fact that this is how it was set. And yet, it was also unsatisfying in the sense that, to me, a single camera shot is meant to put you in the action, to make everything part of it, to heighten that realism. But all of these shots were like camera move to a shot, something happens, camera freezes, recovery, scene, moment. Then we camera move to the next bit, and then we stop. And something happens and things move and whatever. And then camera moves and we run to the next. And the staticness of each of those moments reminded me of how the episode felt as a whole. You were doing bits to link each of these moments and each of these cool little bits and each of these shots. But how you got from A to B and B to C and C to D, it didn't really matter so much. You were more interested in showing us A, then B, then C, then D. And while I love a lot of the camera work and I love a lot of the choices that were done, that kind of staccato feel I got is, I think, one of the things that left me with this episode is moments of images rush together and then to the next scene where we can get an image shot. But Mark, what did you think post train escape onto our hopeful rescue on the Ark?
Well, talking about the cinematography, I heard a thing that the best cinematography is the ones that the viewer doesn't really notice. Like if if the cinematographer is doing their job, the audience isn't going to stop to focus on the cinematography. They're going to be engrossed in the story, and the cinematography is going to help them engross them in the story. And I guess I had a different experience than you, Darren, because I didn't even notice that it was shot like that because I was engrossed in the story.
Very good. Very good.
And looking back on it, I think that I do remember now that it was fluent. I actually do think that helped me. That helped the action scene. I do think personally that it did fit together nicely because it was a combination of the world falling apart and them having to fight random guys. I was sort of really enthralled and excited by the scene, and of course the stakes were high because they were trying to get to the Ark to save their lives. Although the one thing that did bother me and itch at me a little bit, and maybe this is just me, was why are those guys still attacking them? I mean,
why are you defending a store when another moon is collapsing?
Yeah, I know you're about to die. Like, what do you care? Like,
yeah, exactly. See, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's just like these were cool, but like, why? Why that choice of all the choices you could have done?
So, I mean, I would say I still ultimately liked it. And as I said, I was sort of enthralled by it. And I did actually ultimately do like the way it was filmed. I think it did work to enhance the scene. But, yeah, it was just that one little thing that was nicking at me. That I suppose you could argue, well, they're going to do their duty right up to their deaths. But
sure,
that seemed more plot convenience to me, to be honest. Like, we got to have this fight and things falling and people fighting. And it just every time they attack them, like, why do they bother? Like,
right.
What do they care? But I don't know. That's just me.
Okay. Don, thoughts for you on our Loki team up and rush to the Ark?
Yeah, so it was kind of crazy. This very much reminded me of Guardians of the Galaxy with the color palette and everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very good. Yeah.
It was interesting to see because, all right, so the color palette reminded me of Guardians of the Galaxy. The action reminded me of Game of Thrones season 8, episode 5, right? When Daenerys is burning down the city, and you got that shot of Arya, video game Arya, basically, Nathan Drake in it through the streets of King's Landing, and so that's kind of what this reminded me of to a certain extent. Not that it wasn't bad at all, So it was just one of those things where, like, oh, okay, we've reached video game mode now, So yeah, that was interesting because we got to see them use their powers in unique ways, and they did a good job of making you feel the sense of urgency and despair that was happening in that moment, and and unfortunately, when it came to the whole thing with the guards, some people are going to protect their investment or their benefactor. Yeah, some people are going to protect their benefactors to the death. It's like, yes, it is certain doom for me, but I must make sure that the people who paid me get off this planet.
Right.
So obviously, you get the ultimate moment of despair when it's like, oh, 5 minutes to launch. Oh, we can still make it. And then, boom. It was like, oh, wow. And that's part of the reason why I think when it comes to the whole thing about Sylvie making an enchantment, I think if she was going to do that, either break the immersion earlier or you don't have the Ark getting destroyed, because at that moment, seeing that you've dashed all hope, why excuse me, how does he come up with another plan? Because the time device that was supposed to get you out of there, done, scrap. The art that's supposed to get you off the planet so that you can survive the apocalypse, and then also maybe not even be hunted by the TVA anymore. Because if they know about this apocalypse and they know that you were there, it's kind of like, all right, well, well, we know according to what we've already read in the time stream, the Ark gets destroyed. Nobody makes it off the planet. So, okay, well, I guess our Loki problem is now solved. So, yeah, it's like I said, I just if there is someone doing an enchantment, I don't think it's Sylvie, only because if it were her, I think she would keep it going until she was able to reel Loki in and get whatever information she needed out of him. And then it's like, okay, cool. Thank you for finally telling me the thing that I've been wanting to know. It only took a fake apocalypse to get you to open up. And now, yeah, you're about to be captured by the TVA, and I'm gone.
Yeah. Well, he did kind of give her an in when they were walking and said, "Why don't you enchant me, and then you can walk for both of us?" If she was waiting for a chance for him to lower his guard, he did kind of give her a chance right there. But I agree with you, and that's where I doubt with the whole enchantment bit, and I think it would be a bit of a Deus Ex Machina if they end up making that she has been enchanting him this whole time. I'm wondering, yeah, Mark.
Well, if the theory is true that she had been enchanting him the whole time, it follows that what it means is that all this stuff with the thing breaking and the arc exploding, none of that happened.
Right.
That was all like a delusion she implanted in his head. And I think like maybe there's something like there could be something she's trying to get from him. That she feels he's only going to give up once he knows he's definitely going to die and there's no way out, which is the situation they're in now.
Well, now, the one possibility that could have happened is, of course, Loki's theory has always been the thing about these apocalypses, you can do whatever you want and it will not cause a variance because everybody's going to die and you can't change anything. But they've never had Loki's there. So potentially Loki's backup plan may be, let's cause as much a big of a hassle as we can. And if we get a blimp, maybe Mobius is going to come save my butt. Because they may think that nobody gets off, but that's the plan with the thing. All they're doing is go, oh, maybe a Loki is here. Let's get them. In which case, then Loki could say, no, you got to take her alive. I want to see the time. Then they could start doing whatever they're
why
dealing
why would they go get them when they can just let them die?
Because they don't know that they don't have a working TVA. They may just think that they've located where they're hiding and want to go get them, thinking that they will escape at any point.
Okay, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I'm reaching, but a moon is about to crash into a planet, so the amount of choices that we have open to us are very limited.
I mean, I gotta be honest. I don't know how I would feel if it was revealed as none of that actually happened in an episode. That was either Loki tricking Sylvie or Sylvie tricking Loki. Either way, I would feel kind of like a cheat.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could work. I won't be dismissive of it prematurely. Like if that's the way they go, I think they could make it work. But I'd probably prefer they not do that.
Right. Okay, just want to take a look here in the chat. Allison mostly missed minutes in this episode. It's the worst thing about it in her mind. Captain Jack agrees that the cards look like cobras from G.I. Joe, so we've got confirmation in there. Alyssa thinks that we've got a lot more complaints about the episode that she did. It may have been her favorite episode so far. Look, you come here for my complaints. You know you do. I try to make them thoughtful complaints. But no, to be honest, there was a lot of great stuff about this episode. Just again, the color planet, a lot of the cinematography, a lot of the choices, a lot of the interaction, a lot of the character bits were wondrous. To me, it was the setup and transition. You know, if this is who Sylvie is, then maybe we shouldn't have sold her as so dangerous ahead of time, and it wouldn't be that much of a cliff for me to step off of. But little things like that. It just, from my mind, just they catch my brain. Let's see. Rob in here, shocked about all that there are variants at the TVA moment, and totally busts up his early thoughts and raises more interesting questions. Yes, that was a big reveal, and I loved how much Loki was interested in it. They don't know that. He's building off of his one conversation with Mobius, I'm assuming. Bill Casey thinks that the daggers, being a gift from Mobius, might be traceable. That's a thought. That is a thought. All right. So now, the one thing I can throw out is apparently a quote from Mr. Loki himself. Tom Hiddleston has said that once he got the script for episode 4 onward, things went in totally unexpected directions for him. Which, you know, could just be a next episode tease. But if this was the filler character build moment, and now we're heading back to let's move the plot land, the fact that the TVA is filled with variants, the Timekeeper story is completely up in the air, there's a lot of questions that are raised up. What is the goal of this series? Let's talk about that a little bit before we wrap things up here. Where do you think we're going with this? Is this just a story about the TVA being remade? Is this just a story of Loki finding himself and moving on? Is this a story just to set up some of the future Marvel films? I mean, most of the two previous Marvel series have been pretty self-contained stories. But where do you think we're going with this little shift in momentum and direction? Mark?
So I had a feeling, as sort of, I guess, theory, maybe. I don't know about like the whole theme of the entire show, but I think maybe its purpose in the greater MCU, because I've heard several people saying that this show, more than the previous two, are going to have a greater impact on the MCU going forward. And so one theory I had was that there is a one true tie line that the TVA are protecting, and at the end of this series, they're no longer going to be there, and they're no longer going to be protecting it, and it's going to split off into madness, hence why it's going to feed into the Multiverse of Madness Doctor Strange movie.
Sure.
And that's sort of one thought that I had, that this basically this series is going to end with the timeline being in chaos. And it's funny because even in that Miss Minutes sort of speech thing, they even mentioned, oh, if they weren't here, this was splintered off into madness. They even like hinted the Multiverse of Madness thing. So, right. I think that may be the main purpose of the show, but as for the greater things like about the character of Loki and stuff like that, I don't know for sure until it's finished.
Yeah.
What that's gonna be.
Cool. All right. Don, any thoughts on where our Loki series is going? Where do you think the story is going to end up looking like? You're on mute.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that this story, like the others ones, is kind of almost telling a what if to a certain extent. But they wanted to experiment with the format, and it's like, okay, well, how close to the movies, to these big blockbuster movies, can we get these TV shows? We're trying to say that we want it to be seamless. How absolutely pitch perfect can we get with these to keep people hooked? But then look, there's also the whole thing of people love Loki. You killed him off in Infinity War. You can't leave all that money on the table.
You can't lose your Tom Hiddleston, man.
Yeah, like you can't leave all that money on the table. So even though I doubt that he's going to rejoin the main MCU at some point, I think this is, perfect way to kind of say goodbye, maybe, to the character, but also, deepen fan investment, if so, because if this turns out to be kind of a one and done thing, it's like, hey, well, look, we still made Loki, the guy that you wanted him to be, and we still made him a good guy at the end of the day. So at least, the very last image of Loki isn't him stealing the Tesseract and still being evil.
Sure.
And other than that, I think, if Kevin Feige said you don't have to watch the shows particularly to get the movies.
Sure.
I'm wondering how long that's going to last. Where it's like, okay, well, fine, yeah, we got Falcon and Winter Soldier season 2, but we also want Captain America 4. So can we really have, one without the other? Can you really go into Captain America 4 without having the backstory for how Sam got the shield and what Bucky's been doing? So I don't know. It's like, I don't know how to feel about its place just yet, because we don't, like, obviously you got the multiverse thing happening here, and then we're supposed to have Doctor Strange into the multiverse of madness, and is this somehow going to be referenced? Like, this
well,
is.
This is definitely, they may end up being like the Easter eggs, like, oh, if you saw this, you'll appreciate this moment, but you don't necessarily have to have seen that to get where it's going. That's always what I sort of felt on that.
Right. Well, I get. Look, real quick, I just want to say I get that part of it. I'm just wondering, like, because I hope they don't do with these shows like what they did with our favorite shows. Especially,
yeah.
Well, there's a difference between that. Kevin Feige is behind these shows where he didn't give a crap. It was I can't remember what the other guy was doing, and apparently he was like, I don't care what that guy's doing, so he purposely disregarded.
Ike Perlmutter was it Ike that I can't remember.
Something like that. Yeah. But anyway, my thought is, I don't know. This is my interpretation. I could be wrong, but when Kevin Feige was saying you don't need to see these shows to see the movies, I think he means that in the same way of you can watch any of the Marvel movies without seeing all of the previous ones, but it helps. like it adds a lot of texture and context because, and for one thing, like we know that Wanda is going to be in the Multiverse of Madness, and basically, I mean, there's no way her story has to continue where they left off in WandaVision. So it's going to be a thing that you could probably watch Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness without having seen WandaVision, but if you have seen WandaVision, it would make a lot more sense to where her character goes. And I think it's going to be a similar thing with Loki, that it's going to, if you've seen Loki, it's going to explain a lot more of the backstory of the multiverse and all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Right. All right. In the chat, want to just hit a few of these before we start wrapping up here. Doc Moore asking, is it possible Loki faked breaking the device and showed her an illusionary broken unit? Yes, Doc, we did actually get into that a little bit. Totally possible. But then why maintain the illusion for such the length, I think was really the question that we started laying out there. Why would that be held for so long? Let's see. Lily Mack mentioning, I think Sylvie wants to destroy the TVA because their sacred timeline isn't her timeline. Well, they definitely seem to be wanting to X her out. So there's a good point there. Bill Casey filling on that weird thought. Not the sacred timeline is broken. We could just be following multiple timelines, and we just watch the timeline where the Lokis die. Okay, well, we touched on this a little bit last week with the timeline and what that could look like. And I think what we may end up seeing is the timeline, like a cable, isn't composed of a singular unit. It's composed of multiple strands that serve to strengthen and reinforce the sacred timeline. It's what allows dimensional travel and time travel for certain magicians and high-tech things to happen without altering the overall package. And that depending on the type of time travel you do, it's dependent on if you go up and down your little strand, which is what like the time stone would do. It's like a slider up and down time. Traveling through the quantum realm moves you from one strand to another strand because you can't change your own past, but you can change the past of an alternate timeline. And then you go back, and of course, that's where Captain America went back to live with Peggy and something like that. It allows the Avengers to go and mess with Thanos and take him out years before he goes and does his thing without the TVA getting crazy. So I think that's what we'll find. And it's why you have so many different variants of Loki, is you have these parallel universes where things are close enough to reinforce each other, but not different enough to happen. And when you get a Nexus event, it's basically one of those cable strands fraying out. And they have to trim it and rewind it back to reinforce, because if you don't, you get what you saw at the end of the last episode, was all of this fraying, and if enough frays, that the cable can snap.
But I like the theory. I think that makes sense, and it does explain some of the inconsistencies and whatnot. But I would say, but that doesn't sound like what they were describing in that Miss Minutes movie. It's described as the sacred timeline. They showed one line, and I'm not saying that maybe that is what they meant, but it seems like they could, because what you're describing is a multiverse, but it's like a planned multiverse. It's controlled multiverse.
Exactly.
They're worried about splintering out of control multiverse.
A multiverse of madness.
Yes.
Which is why we could lead in, and as Rob mentions in the chat as well, everything has to break and split apart to come back together in a secret war, create new timelines, allow stories with X-Men and things like that, which, yes, is my big theory. And it all plays into it. So I think that's where we may be going. But yeah, I think, like this episode, the information that we've gotten has been dropped and is always open to be expanded upon or reinterpreted depending on if they intended to fool us or not. So it does keep things really, really interesting. All right. Well, I think that gives us a pretty good coverage of this episode. Really, thank everyone for joining us in the chat live. Really, some really good discussions. Everyone who has joined us in the archive, thank you so much for checking out our discussions. Please be sure to hit the like, the subscribe button, the notifications, let you know when all these reviews start to happen, and come back. They're, of course, Thursday night, 6 p.m. for the next 3 weeks, covering Loki. Easy to find us. So I do want to, again, thank my guests, Marc and Don, for joining us. Why don't you guys tell us any last-minute thoughts, what you're doing, and where people can find you? Marc, let's start off with you.
All right, so I'm going to take this opportunity to plug once again the Time Leap discussion I'll be doing with these two gentlemen. Really looking forward to it. So I had a list I tried to find like definitive 20 Time Loop movies, TV episodes, and one season of television. And basically, we've watched them all, or Don has some viewing to do, apparently. But we will have watched them all by next Saturday. And we're going to do a collective countdown. We'll have our own personal rankings of the 20 units, and we'll sort of take turns forming our own top 20. So really, really, this is something I've been planning for like I think 6 months. So really looking forward to it. I only have 3 movies left to watch, so it shouldn't take me very long.
All right, I'm right there with you. Okay, I thought I was still behind, but all right, not bad, not bad.
So that's going to be not this Saturday, but next Saturday, July 3rd on my channel at, basically we said the same time, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. West Coast. Yep.
Yeah, cool. I believe so, yes.
And, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I will definitely put notice out as we get a little bit closer, and you can always check out Mark's channel, and he is very good at putting notifications on the new stuff that is coming up for him.
Absolutely. And also, if you haven't heard of me, my channel's Enchantment of Eternity. I cover, at the moment, I'm doing a lot of Star Trek episode reviews. I will cover Loki once season has finished, do my overall review of Loki, and, other various stuff like that. I'm just finishing up my coverage of The Outer Limits and doing a rewatch review episode, season by season review of Better Call Saul. Love that show. Great show. And other various videos and whatnot coming up on my channel. So check me out for that.
Excellent. All right. And of course, the man below us with the infinity cap, Agent Williams himself. Don, final thoughts, and where can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I thought this was a great episode. So far for me, Marvel has been kind of knocking it out of the park with these Disney Plus series. I know Mark isn't necessarily a fan of the Falcon social justice soldier, but look, I think in terms of quality of an episode, for people who think this is a filler, I think you really have to go back and look at it again and just see the unfolding of revelations. The things that they give you to think about in here should be enough to let you know that it's not a filler episode. But anyway, as for me, you can find me on Twitter every now and then at idonwillie. That's IDONWILLI. Find me, with this guy for a lot of these kind of reviews. And sooner or later, eventually, sometime in 2077, I'll be back at a Dawn of Ice and Fire, doing some Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon related something. But listen, Darren, it's always great to be here. Mark, can't wait for next Saturday. I got a lot of cramming to do. A lot of notes to take to catch up, but I'll get there. I will get there.
Excellent.
All right, Darren, take it away.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, thank you both so much for joining me with this excellent discussion. Again, chat, thank you so much for jumping in and sharing your thoughts and everything. Always appreciate you seeing you. Everyone in the archives, appreciate you checking out the channel, and we will catch you next week. Thanks so much, and take care. All right, now I've got to hit like 5 different buttons in order to end this.